questions 26 through 30. This is a review of Pythagorean theorem. And for this section, you're going to want to go to 4.4 part 1 in your chapter 4 review. This is where we're looking at Pythagorean theorem. So just a quick review here when we talk about right triangles, because that's what you use Pythagorean theorem for, is that in a right triangle, you have the hypotenuse, which is the side directly across from the right angle. And then you have the two legs or the two sides that aren't part of that hypotenuse. Also remember to square a number, you're taking that number times itself, not times 2, which a lot of students do. So for example, if you see 9 squared, that's 9 times 9, which equals 81. If you see 3 squared, that's 3 times 3, which gives you 9. And just like we do when we're solving a multi-step equation with addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division, to undo something, you want to do the opposite of it. So in order to undo a square or the opposite of squaring a number, you find the square root of it. So for example, for 64 equals c squared, you want to square root both sides. And in this case, the square root of 64 is 8. The same thing for 81. If you're looking for c squared equals 81 and you want to know what just c is, you need to square root both sides. So the square root of 81 is 9. The actual Pythagorean theorem here starts on slide 40. And if you remember, in a right triangle, the square of the length of the hypotenuse is the sum of the squares of the lengths of the legs. Sounds kind of crazy, but it's leg squared plus leg squared equals hypotenuse squared. Or, as we usually say, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So if we go back to question 26, I have 2 legs here. I have 6 and I have 8 as my legs, and I'm looking for the hypotenuse. Remember, in the Pythagorean theorem, the hypotenuse is always c. So I'm going to set up my equation here as 6 squared plus 8 squared equals x squared. Sorry for my crazy handwriting here. So then 6 squared is 6 times 6, which gives me 36. 8 squared is 8 times 8, which gives me 64. And we're still looking for this x squared, and we're actually looking for just x, remember. We don't leave it at x squared. We need to keep going there. So 36 plus 64 gives me 100 equals, my 0 did not finish, equals x squared. I'm not done yet because the problem is looking for x, not x squared. So if I need to find out what x is and it's being squared, to undo a square, I square root both sides. This technically negates or crosses off that so that x equals the square root of 100, and the square root of 100, my x's are getting crazy here, x equals 10. So for 26 and 27, let me double check, yep, and 28, you are looking for the hypotenuse. So you're going to set up 26, 27, and 28, just like you did here with your a squared plus b squared equals c squared. For questions 29 and 30, you're actually looking for a leg instead of the hypotenuse. So let's work through number 29 together as well. So 29 says you're given the hypotenuse, so I know that that's c, and I'm looking for a. So a squared plus 5 squared equals, and remember, hypotenuse, or that side directly across from the right angle, is always c squared. So I'm going to set up my problem like this when I'm looking for a leg. So I still have a squared, that's what I'm looking for. 5 squared gives me 25. And then 13 squared is going to give me 169. So to get a squared by itself, I want to subtract this 25 from both sides. So a squared equals 144. Not done yet because I need to know what a is, not a squared. So to undo a square, we need to square root both sides. So a equals the square root of 144. And the square root of 144 is 12. So set up question 30 very similar to the way you would set up question 29.